weak and insignificant who gets caught in them, but they will be torn to shreds by people with power and wealth. End of quote. In other words, Anarchist argues that laws were meant for the weak people, for the ordinary marginalized folks, the poor. Those who are powerful do not care laws, because laws were nothing to them. They were the people who decree laws. So laws were meant for the poor. Does that hold? Probably not. Honorable Ministers, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, members of the press corps, we are gathered here to listen to President Adama Barrow's National Security Advisor, Colonel Mamadou Badji, to provide us with details of the significant transformation thus far registered in the much talked about security sector reform, SSR, across the spectrum. During his rendition, some of the highlights in Mr. Badji's speech would capture the case of several hundred non-Gambians who were allegedly enlisted in the forces by the previous regime. Specifically, there was a case of one Omar Sadio who enlisted with fake credentials. He trained and served until he was finally dismissed and voluntarily left Gambian shores. Sadio now lives in his native Casamance, southern Senegal. He also talked about the end to arbitrary arrests and incommunicado detentions, state-sanctioned disappearances, and rape of women, the end of hundreds of military checkpoints purely for intimidation, usurpation of citizens' rights, and infringement of their freedom of movement, or freedoms of movement. The case of the reconstituted and reformed SIS, what used to be called the NIA, end to impunity and state-sanctioned banditry, late-night arrests, extortions, disappearances, torture, and intimidation. A new and reformed prison system where torture is now anathematized. The various trainings and workshops to build confidence among civilians and the security forces, and the remarkable role ECOMIC continues to play in the Gambia. On this note, I would invite the National Security Advisor to give us his very loaded report about all the significant developments that have been taking place for the past 4 years. And thereafter, the program goes thus. We will be inviting questions, journalists. You could direct your question to specific ministers. They are also here with their department heads, and they are also here with some military officers in case there are technical issues to resolve. I thank you, and I welcome you once again.
Thank you very much, the Honorable Spokesperson of the Government of the Gambia and the Chair of this press conference. I also want to seize this opportunity to recognize the presence of the Honorable Minister of Defense, Sheikh Omar Faye, the Honorable Minister of Interior, Yankuba Sonko, and the Honorable Minister of Information, Ibrahima Silla. With us here, we also have the Permanent Secretary of Defense, Ndeye Marinjai. We have the Director of Information Service, the Head of Prison Service, that's the DG, the Director of Prison Service. I can also see the MA to the Honorable Minister of Defense and representatives of the various heads of security institutions, the members of the media fraternity. I want to say good morning to you all. I also want to start by welcoming you to this press conference, which is aimed at updating the public and the people of the Gambia, the right owners of this particular project, about how far and where we are in the much talked about security sector reform process and the way forward and the next steps. And what exactly we mean by security sector reform. Probably for a start, one most respected definition of security sector reform is, and I quote, a political and technical process of improving the state and human security by making security provisions, management, oversight more effective, more efficient, more accountable, of course, to the civilian sector, and allow it to be within the framework of democratic civilian control, rule of law, and respect for human rights. This was United Nations Security Sector Reform Perspective, September 2017. End of quote. Ladies and gentlemen, the objective of the Gambian security sector reform process include the establishment of civilian and democratic oversight mechanism that guarantee non-occurrence of human rights violation by the security forces and the development of national security policy and strategic frameworks which will focus on the security sector governance. Under the stewardship of the Commander-in-Chief, His Excellency President Adama Barrow, a comprehensive assessment of the security sector reform was conducted with the support of, obviously, our international development partners. The Gambia national ownership of the security sector reform remains a core component of the results indicators that include, firstly, restoration of public trust and confidence in the security sector, respect for human rights and rule of law with standard international best practice, and full subordination of efficient and effective security institutions to the democratic norms and civilian authority. In order to forge ahead, I will take you through, firstly, the priorities. We have considered that the first priority of our reform is to develop conceptual documents on the security sector reform, and also to have the development of the assessment report. We also have developed the national security policy with the intention and the aim to guide the vision of His Excellency the President and his government. Subsequently, we have just received our National Security Strategy document and the Security Sector Reform Strategy document. These two documents, for the earlier mentioned one, that's the National Security Strategy document, it is aimed at implementing all the visionary concepts we have in the national security policy, and the latter, that is the security sector reform strategy, is basically to address and solve the malfunctions, the deficits, and the gaps that were noticed as findings and finally as recommendations of the assessment process. Another priority, of course, we gave was to look and reform the important security institutions to ensure that they are aligned to modern day and also they follow the democratic norms and values. Ladies and gentlemen, immediately after our assessment, we looked at all the findings and people's concern and the needs that were expressed during the nationwide consultation. You will agree with me, it was huge. And to address it, we decided to integrate them into 5 thematic areas. Theme number 1, or program line number 1, is reform activities relating to overarching frameworks. This barely is to address the frameworks, in particular the policy and strategies, the regulations, and the institutional acts that were either obsolete or that were non-existent. So that was why, you will find out our focus and concentration as at now had initially been to draft and develop the national security policy, the security sector reform strategy, etc. But aside from these ones, the institutions also have been developing, reviewing their different respective acts and regulations. The second reform activity looked at issues relating to individual institutions. I think here we all know that there was absence of policies and there were issues of capacity. So we really needed to improve and build capacities and capabilities of the institutions and the personnel. Recruitment was also important. I think we all had the honorable spokesperson with the abuses, with some of the issues that happened in the last, former government. There was really need to have to focus on issues relating to especially recruitment, because essentially what we wanted is those who were recruited before, those who were abused, we would want to work and train them to be able to build their capacities and to ensure that, the past is history. But then it is important that we inculcate in the new ones that are coming, the democratic norms and the new practice. So we will look at the career training and development. Promotions is also equally important. So now, as the saying goes, I think the issue of promotion should be by merit. We will also look at issues of ethnicity. I think we all had, the imbalance that was actually, embedded in most of the institutions. We needed to ensure that, people are recruited, people are promoted on the basis of merit. The third program line focuses on management and oversight bodies. These are key important institutions that without them, it will be difficult for the security sector reform to train and ensure there is democratic, norms practice, and then there is justice done to whatever is happening in our institutions. We have, on this one, we need to look at the professionalism of, the individuals there, the absence of ineffectiveness of the management and oversight will also be addressed. The institutions basically that look at this, I have on my left, immediate left, the Honorable Minister of Defense. The Defense Ministry is very key, very important in ensuring that the armed forces is managed and to ensure that, there is fairness and justice in all the activities. There also, we have the Honorable Minister of Interior, Honorable Yankuba Sanko, who has oversight management and oversight management over a key institutions that deal with our internal security matters. Firstly, the police. I can see members of the prisons institution here, call them correction, and we have also the Gambia Immigration Department, the Fire Service, the Drug Law Enforcement, etc. So we also have, the National Assembly. There is an important body or committee at the National Assembly called the Standing Committee on Defense and Security. They have an oversight, function, which without carrying out, we will not be able to achieve the goals and objectives of our security, sector. Then you can also look at, the ombudsman. We know the ombudsman has very important, role, and it is key now in helping the services, not only even the security services, but the public services to ensure that, there is fair play and justice in the way they are managed. So we also have, critical, institutions like the civil society organizations, the non-governmental agencies, the media, of course, our colleagues. You are all to ensure that the security sector, there is balance and there is justice and there is fairness in the way the security sector is managed. So you have a say in the new system and you have a say in how we want, to manage. So it is no more a state function alone. It is an inclusive and holistic approach. So these are the oversight, bodies. Then we have an important program line we call the reform to address post-authoritarian legacy. I think we all know that, in the last, or the past 22 years, there were issues of human rights abuses, which of course brought in the transitional justice system, and then we are all keen for listeners of the TRRC. We have seen the National Human Rights Commission. We have seen also the CRC trying to address and get us a new constitution. So in the military and in the security also, there were reports of certain arms and then that were kept in the State House before, and we had, before His Excellency moved to the State House, that was one of our duties to ensure we clear it and also be able to record it and then have it properly kept, because some of those ammunitions needed proper armories. So basically, having said that, I think I needed to proceed and inform you that the reform ultimately envisage a security setup which is going to be responsive and accountable to the security needs, hinge on the following: to ensure that the legal framework for the ministries, the directorates, the security institutions, and their needs are clearly defined, and the roles and responsibilities of each institution and the delineation between them are also very clear. We also wanted to ensure, and the process is on, that specific, democratic procedures for administration and operational activities are identified, and applicability of the internal rules and procedures are attained. We also wanted, and working on still to ensure instruments exist for other stakeholders to engage, monitor the security sector institutions, identify the constitutional basis for each component activities, and ensure security institutions and their employees are indeed accountable to their actions before the law. Having said that, I think you are all aware that we started in 2017 and we are now in 2020. Obviously, a lot probably might not have come to the domain of the public. However, we have, in our own small way, achieved some milestones. And I want to take you through some of those, achievements. Starting obviously with the high point one, that is the official launch of the security sector reform, which was done on the 12th of September 2017 by none other than His Excellency President Adama Barrow. And now we have visibly seen some gradual progress in articulating a comprehensive policy framework for the reform of the security sector in adherence with international standards and human rights. The government has taken steps to gradually institutionalize a civilian-led system of governance and coordination of the security sector. The National Assembly is emerging as an effective and prominent actor in the civilian control and oversight of the sector. The political space that has been created now, you all agree with me, has enabled civil society organizations to be able to work and express their views on the security sector and also any issues of concern. There is also effort that has been made in a way to promote gender mainstreaming and parity in the security sector reform. At the level of the security institutions, we have, there is an let me take it again. At the level of the security institutions, there have been overall qualitative changes towards the formation of security sector that is responsive to the people of this country. Mm-hmm. We have, like Honorable the spokesperson have said, we have seen our police actively, especially these days, ensuring that, the community policing has been, very effective. The issues of police brutality there is a reduction. The arrests are normal, the checkpoints. We have seen definitely a lot of progress. The I think in the past 1 month or two, the Inspector General was busy, moving around the country, inaugurating police stations, most of which have been as a support from the Gambian people. So that is an indication of an improvement in community policing and improvement of police relations with partners. We are also going to encourage the relationship and bilaterals between private sector. In the armed forces, we have also witnessed, where we explore what the Gambian military will do in terms of support. We have seen the military civilian relationship, which has improved. I don't think you've been seeing a lot of military nowadays, in the streets. As for the state intelligence services, that is the SIS, I think just to elaborate the points raised by the Honorable spokesperson, the refocus of the SIS was to reorient the whole institution, and then we have seen them improving their service. They are no more oppressing anybody, and they are not making any arrest, and then they are working to be protectors and ensuring their well-being and prosperity, with emphasis, obviously, on human dignity. I think they have also evolved, and then they are transforming. The SIS also has improved their services, and then their priority is training and orientation of their staff to ensure that the fundamentals of modern intelligence and the tradecraft of intelligence is entrenched in their institutions. The prison service has equally improved. The drug law enforcement, I think we've seen the number of arrests that have been made these days. So basically, we have got security institutions that have improved in terms of operations and their activities. I just want to take you through one important institution that may not be part of us, and that is our economic. I think of late we are all aware that the issue of economic is mentioned virtually at every press conference, and then people have brought it as a concern. But I just want to allay your fears and sometimes your concerns, and state categorically and courageously that the economic, their presence in this country is as a result of the invitation that was extended for them to come and assist in the stabilization of the country. I think it is, known to everybody here. I think we are all aware of what happened in 2016. Though we have not had and we did not run into conflict, but we had a difficult impasse. We had an impasse and a very difficult, indeed, a transition. So basically, they also have a mandate to allow us, that is us, the security, to undertake a meaningful security sector reform, not only at the level of SSR, but at the level of the institutions. While it is a stabilizing factor. I want you to also note that economic is as well providing the required capacity building and support for the viable implementation of this very security sector reform that has brought us around, this room. And then they also are helping and conducting, joint training. They are having joint patrols, and they are also involved in civil-military relations. So basically, their engagement, is very productive, and we want to encourage and appeal for a common understanding that the economic is here for a period, and they are doing, whilst they are doing a meaningful job, we are also trying to train and build the capacity of our own institutions. So from there, I think you may allow me to look at the issues relating to some of the activities, mainly that we carried out. In 2017, we have also had, a national agency, like he said, the national agency of called the NIA was renamed. Then we also conducted a 6-week human rights training for the newly, constituted SIS. In May 2017, 6 weeks after, the National Security Council established a National Security Advisor and appointed and then allowed the drafting of instructions on the ONS. We have these drafting instructions that will help to enact the office of the National Security Advisor. It's a long list. I will just attempt to cherry pick one or two because of, issues of time constraint. I think one of the achievements also is the appointment of the Honorable Minister sitting right on my left. Before the Second Republic, I think that vacancy and that appointment and responsibility was on the shoulder of His Excellency the President. So we consider it as one of the milestones of the process. The prison service has been, prison review has been conducted. There was training, there was a desk review of policies, new administrative team set up at the prison, and then now I think, as you can see, and as alluded by the Honorable spokesperson, we have seen a lot of changes in terms of both administration and operations of the prisons. The office of the ONS where I sit is expected, in addition, to have more staff. We've just employed the service of 3 directors, and we are looking forward for a decentralization so that we will be able to sit in the regions, the communities, and also in the districts. The journalists also had shared, have got the part of the cake. We have had, conducted 2 or 3, workshops and seminars for journalists on security sector reform to ensure that there is improvement on the reportings on the security sector. And I want to seize that opportunity to thank some of you here to, inform and ensure that your colleagues know that we are very considerate when it comes to the media and journalists. We consider you as partners of the security sector reform. We have done a lot of training regarding sexual and gender-based violence, collaborative policies, human rights, and security institutions, the vetting, counterterrorism, etc. We have also had the opportunity to go on a study tour, namely to Ghana, Sierra Leone, and to Kosovo. And in each of those study tour, it was not restricted to the members of the security institutions. We ensured that the oversight management were part of the tours, namely the ministries, the National Assembly, etc. Currently, ladies and gentlemen, the National Defense and Internal Security Reform strategies, or policies you can call it, are being prepared for drafting. And we have got a vetting act which is being also drafted, and then the last activity which we conducted was training workshop on vetting and intelligence assessment. The process of vetting and counterterrorism is a main target, and we are using them for those who don't know, especially that of vetting, to ensure that we continue to monitor the behaviors and the attitudes, the performance, the competence, the integrity of all the security personnel. Before, we used to have what we call screening, where the intelligence and the police, obviously, the CID, will screen the individual recruit or the one who is the potential employee, and then allow him to get into the job. Once he is there, full stop. But then we found the security sector reform is saying that is not enough. Mm-hmm. One can have, a good behavior, and then along the line, while he is serving, then run into problems or copy peer group problem issues, etc. So the vetting is here to follow each and every member of the security to ensure that anytime he has any issues relating to competence, integrity, behavior, he will be called to point, and he will be called to answer. Mr. Chairman, honorable ministers, and ladies and gentlemen, by 2024, we are expected to have enhanced foresight, accountability, and respect for rule of law. We would have laid the foundation for, indeed, professionalization of the security sector, and we would achieve capacitation of the security as it is, captured in our strategic documents. The sector also will be developing, their policy and strategy frameworks to guide the management and operations of the security sector. I would therefore like to express my sincere gratitude to, firstly, the government of the Gambia under the stewardship of His Excellency for giving us the guidance, and also extend our gratitude to members of the international advisor groups, namely the ECOWAS, Defense and Security Advisors, the African Union, and the AU, the policy advisors at UNDP, the EU advisors, the advisors from United States of America, France, and Spain, and also the advisors from Germany. To the interim security sector reform partners, countries notably, and that is the international partners, countries like France, Germany, Spain, Turkey, Qatar, United Kingdom, United States, Nigeria, Senegal, People's Republic of China, Saudi Arabia, and we want to also express and put it on record that we want to thank them for their remarkable and always reliable support on the ongoing security sector reform. We have gone this far. What is left and what is ahead, we have just framed as our next steps. To take us to the end of the process, we are about to draft, like I said earlier, the national defense and internal security policies. There will be an enactment of the vetting agency, because after the framework and the strategy is built, people will be employed purposely to be able to look after the issues of integrity of the institutions. So you will find out that this vetting sent to the National Assembly for enactment. Media campaign sensitization on security vetting is expected to commence in December this year or before the end of December, and the EU advisor on security sector reform is expected, and who is the expert has already secured funding and approval and now trying to finalize the project. The next step also includes the enactment of my very office, the Office of the National Security, which is also at the Ministry of Justice. So very soon we will see a lot of enactments to ensure that the institutions are empowered to be operational. Mr. Chairman, honorable ministers, my colleagues, members of the press, it is evident that the government of the Gambia, under His Excellency, President Adama Barrow, has been engaged in a very serious, rigorous exercise to improve a lot of our security landscape and terrain. While enormous progress has been registered in this endeavor, we are not oblivious of the remaining challenges, and we are ever determined to tackle them on. But these obviously will be done holistically, and when I mean holistically, I want to draw you to the fact that there is this saying that security is everybody's business. So when we say we are determined, I'm not restricting the scope to the security sector, but every individual, including obviously our partners here, the media fraternity. Considering the scale of the transitional risks and challenges, and from the autocratic rule and authoritative one, and moving to democracy, we are resolved that security sector reform is a must if we are to progress as a peaceful, stable, secure, and civilized nation in the 21st century. On that note, I want to thank you all for your kind attention and await your questions. Thank you very much. God bless you all. Sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. National Security Advisor, Mr. Badu. Like I predicted, he has actually elaborated enormously on the developments following President Adama Barrow's ascendancy to political power. Now I will hand over the mic, and it's going to go like this. We have 3 cabinet ministers seated. Each of them is ready to answer questions where they come. For purposes of time limitation and considering the significance of this topic, I would advise all to focus your questioning on national security. That is really why we are here. I know you may have other significant questions to pose. However, it's Friday. It's getting to 1 o'clock in the next 5 minutes, according to my ever correct time. Minister of Defense, I don't know how correct your work is, but mine is always correct. Yeah. So you pose a question, you identify yourself, the institution or the agency you are representing, and then you allow the answers to. Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, my name is Bukuri Yao, and I work for the Foreign Ministry.
Okay.
Basically, you did mention that.
The question is for who?
Yes, it's going to the defense, national security advisor.
Okay.
And I did mention that about 700 people were enlisted in the security. I mean, I want to specifically tell us which network what is it.
No, it wasn't 700. Several.
Several. Tell us the number. If you have, can you tell us the number?
You know, because of security reasons, it is not sometimes advisable to be very specific with figures. So, but then for a smart journalist like you, several means several.
Thank you very much. I'm Jeff from
The Chronicle.
Yeah. So my question would be directed to the Minister of Defense. I just want to know, first and foremost, how much serious is this government? How much committed is this government in relation to this subject we are talking about today? We're talking about security security. And then, this is coming on the heels of rejection of the national constitution, the draft constitution. And then this security security fund is going to have a lot in relation to the TRIC, the outcome that is supposed to come from the TRIC. I am wondering what would be the fate of that outcome, the TRIC outcome, in terms of respecting that. Because if the outcome is that certain members of the army, or even the head of this national security advisor himself, his name has been mentioned there. Would be if the outcome actually affected him, this whole process could be wrong, just like we've seen in the Black Constitution. That is actually okay. And then my second question is to the national security advisor himself. You did say when you were outlining some of the achievements you made. I mean, among these achievements, it's about creating an atmosphere for people to express themselves. So for recently, what we've seen is that Mali Giovanni was arrested recently for expressing his group. We've seen that police brutality continued because very recently we've seen that even the head of anti-crime was found wanting by the National Human Rights Commission investigation. What do you actually mean? But let me add this now. We've also seen that your colleague minister, that is Honorable Hamad Khan, very recently cried out that.
You are talking to me. I'm not a minister.
All right, suddenly.
Yeah.
Hello? Honorable Hamad.
Hello. With due respect, when I said I was handing over the mics, I made it very clear that I was asking you your indulgence, given the limited time, to actually focus on the topic.
Yeah, it's related.
No, hold on, please. Hold on. Ahmad Bas utterances, whether right or wrong, really, are a subject matter for a different topic. Just hold on one second. Hold on, please. Hold on. As you rightly said, the National Security Advisor himself was summoned by the Commission. Even then, he cannot comment on the just hold on, please. I listen to you when you are talking. Can you listen, please? I'm helping you to answer your question. Please.
But maybe you should wait until I finish.
No, you should have finished after one question.
No, I'm not done.
One question
My
is.
question actually has a very key relation.
One, no, look.
And then you got not to know that without
No, you're not listening to me. Everybody asks a question and then after you give chance to others. So you have three questions.
Only 30 seconds, can I respond?
No, you have 3 questions already.
No, oh, I have one. I raised only one question. That is question. I'm making my second question. Can you give me just 30 seconds?
You know the thing is,
Just please 30 seconds.
you are going to talk. Well, let me tell you this. I'm the chair. And I am going to determine what they are going to answer.
Yes.
Honestly.
That's what I'm saying.
No, I'm just telling you this.
30 minutes.
Well, okay,
30 seconds.
go ahead.
Thank you. So the reason why I raised this Hamad issue, he cried out of certain discrimination against his tribe, and this is actually connected to the immigration. They are approach towards questioning some of these tribe men and women. I am connecting what.
Can you ask the question, please?
Yes, the question is the National Security Council. The whole issue. There is the security sector reform here. What would be the we have seen that this is part of the list that I've mentioned here.
So this is 30 seconds?
Yes, because you have not given me this space.
Okay, I
So
don't want to do this. I don't want to do this, but I'm going to put my...
In all these trees, can you just explain?
Who is this guy?
What is your achievement in this?
It's okay.
What is your achievement?
Okay, no, hold on. You see, please.
No. You are not fair to me.
It's okay.
When you intercepted, you should not have intercepted the time. But then these are the 3 questions I raised. Maybe you can recommend against the achievement you made.
I don't think I intercepted. I think I interjected.
Yeah, then what
As a journalist, I don't have missiles
Yeah, but
to be interjected.
whatever
No, hold on, to be intercepted. Just hold on. I am not stopping anybody. I was very, very clear that given the limited time, let everybody ask a question and we proceed. And you can ask. Okay?
So
I think the question he has, Minister of Defense, is how serious is the Gambia government?
Okay.
How committed? Just listen. I listen to you. How committed and serious is the Barrow government in addressing national security reform? That is number 1 question. His number 2 question might be for Interior. How serious is this reform given the utterances of Honorable Ba about alleged discrimination against the Fula community?
Yeah. And Gorgimbu. So let them just calm down.
Yeah.
I mean, we are not.
So if you making it like we are fighting, and we are not
Let
fighting.
them just calm down.
No, it's okay. 1 question is what I have to.
Okay, so we let it go.
Huh? This is just, sometimes.
Interior, go ahead. Go for it.
Yeah, please.
Thank you very much for those questions. I will concentrate my answer on only 1 or 2 of them, and probably Mr. will continue with it. With regards to the matter, the case of Gorgimbu, I think the public must be very pleased now that change happened and forum is created for investigation of those matters, and the outcome is certain punishment was levied against him. So that conclusion, I don't think it's necessary for us to, because I think the journalists know this matter than even my very self, that it was a matter that was investigated by a body, independent body for that matter, and then they have their findings. There are advice findings against Gorgimbu, and their recommendations. Those recommendations have already been implemented. I think this should be a matter that we should not talk about here when the facts are all known to everybody. The second issue is about the immigration, the issuance of national ID card. There are procedures that normally have to be adopted. One, you have to confirm that person is a Gambian. And the discussion lies on the desk officer of the immigration to determine whether sufficient evidence has been produced to confirm that person's nationality. He has a discretion to refer them. And in most of the cases, all the cases that we know so far are all referred. They direct them to obtain certain information and come back to the desk officer. Nobody is outrightly rejected as far as I'm concerned. Thank you.
Okay, I think there was one from... Thank you very much. I think that was very good. I think they are good questions. Thank you. Thank you very much. We'll just have to exercise some patience and get our mics. Before delving into the subject matter of the day, please allow me to thank the Almighty Allah for His continuous showering and blessings upon us as individuals and as a nation. Equally, I would like to thank the organizers of this very important press briefing. The purpose of the press briefing has already highlighted is meant to update the general public on the sector reform. I was not meant to make a statement. I had prepared myself in case I was asked to make a statement. I have some very nice statement here, but I am not moderating or in charge of this press briefing. I was invited like all of you. My first advice is you people are very young. Calm down. We have called you in. That answers your question, whether the seriousness of your president, our president. Yes, he's serious. He's very serious. The government is very serious. That's why we have called in a press briefing. And thank God that now we are talking to ourselves as Gambians. Let us appreciate what's going on. You need to calm down, ask your questions, we will answer them. We are all Gambians. We don't come here for confrontation. And the attitude I've seen so far is that some people are trying to become, no, we are not doing that. We're better than that as Gambians. We have been to press conferences, different parts of Africa, yeah. I've not seen journalists just coming aggressive. They'll ask their questions. So please, I want to appeal to all of you. Let us concentrate on the facts. Now I'm going to answer, because as the moderator said, there is limited time. This is one of, we'll be having a lot of press briefings, inshallah. These were directives from the Commander-in-Chief at the Security Council meeting that is important to start to share with the population, because there is a lot of disinformation and a lot of undermining and a lot of lies. It's better for people to come out and put the record straight. We are all Gambians, and that's what we're going to do. So let us treat each other with respect and dignity. If you speak, I'll listen to you. Please allow me. But you are asking one question you asked for, asking about what Ahmad Bahad said. Has that got to do with our national security? Yes, it does, but it's not got to our level yet. The Minister of Interior will handle that. That's not going to be Minister of Defense. I will never talk about... Okay, good. And also the National Security Advisor, if you may ask him something about the TRRC. The TRRC is in progress. This gentleman here, with all fairness, cannot come and answer questions there why that process is on. So please, this is one of, we're going to go in and answer as many as possible. And maybe in another week or two, if journalists want, we can continue to talk to you all. But to tell you, what we are doing is we are serious. This government is serious. That's why we have put up a national security policy, a national security strategy which is ready, a security sector reform strategy, downsizing, right-sizing, lots is going on. Security sector reform, please, it's not only about the army, the armed forces. I know there are a lot of problems with the armed forces, but it's about immigration, GRA, prisons, drug squad, SIS, judiciary, the parliament. We are reforming as a country. But everybody is concentrating, thinking about armed forces. Yes, we are one of it. That's why I'm not moderating, because I'm just a component in all the reform. Interior is a component. SIS is a component. So please, I want journalists to take this home. It's not only about the armed forces. The SSR is about the Gambia changing our mindset, because we're doing things that we are behind. That's just the truth. Reform is not only the armed forces with guns there. It's also about our young people, our generation as Gambians, to change our line of thinking. If you have questions, we are ready to answer all your questions. If I don't know, I have a technical team here. I have a staff officer, I have a permanent secretary, and I have a lot of the staff. And all the ministries have their staff. The Minister of Communication is here. So please, ladies and gentlemen, let's handle this soberly answer your questions. If there is something left, we leave you with our numbers. You follow up with me, I'll give you the answers. One thing I will tell you before I conclude, I will not be here to talk about internal, top secret national security of the Gambia. You don't even want that. It's not good for you. This is your country. Do you think any country will come on the table and just think it's journalism nice, they you say everything, you are from what, Oklahoma Chronicle? That's never going to happen. But we will tell you everything you need to know, but not in the open. This is national security. I hand over back to you.
Okay, let me just thank you very much. Let me just make some clarifications. I think at this juncture, it will be beneficial for all of us, and especially you, our partners, in this very important security sector reform process. You see, some misconception about the whole process of this transition that we are going through. We have the security sector reform. We have the TRRC, related victim center. We have the human rights and commission. We also have, in the making, there are coming to be issues relating to anti-corruption or whatever, but we also have the CRC. But we have to be careful here, and I think we need to understand that among all these players, they are interconnected, they are definitely interrelated, but they are sitting on the different jurisdictions. It is only security sector reform that sits under my jurisdiction as a technical coordinator, obviously with the political guidance of the political executive. Even the ownership, the commitment and the will is all guided, and the directives is given from the executive. But we work closely with all these three, TRRC, etc., but they are directly under the jurisdiction of the Attorney General and the Minister of Justice, meaning they are sitting under the Ministry of Justice. So you can see there is a misunderstanding, especially about the public's perception. People do ask us about, those, soldiers, those police officers, and issues relating to, crime, and those who have gone through the TRRC, etc. For the TRRC in particular, I think it has been coming on several times that it was, a directive, and it was enacted by the National Assembly, and then the Justice Ministry has been given a task that the TRRC Commission, a task to look at everything that has been done as atrocity and the issues relating to it. And then they will come up definitely with a report. And this report will be taken to the government, and there will be a white paper. So for one to think that, lack of addressing some of those issues while the process is still ongoing, I think probably I would say may not be very fair. And the last one is, you did mention that my name came up in the TRRC, but I think it was cleared. I have never appeared there because they have investigated and found it as a fact that the period they were even talking about, I was not active in the military. I was posted in Mansakonko as a commissioner. In fact, it was 5 of us. On the 15th of August myself, Kaba Bajo, Modu Bojang, Amadou Suare, and Musa Balde were appointed, and we were released from the military, and we went to serve in the provinces as commissioners. He is a living witness. So some of the members even know that at that time I was definitely not in the army. So that is the correction I want you to take note. Thank you very much.
I think that's not just to add something to the allegations of disappearance before the DRC. The Honorable Minister of Information can bear witness. There were days that we would go to the DRDS every day, and we would talk about these atrocities and disappearances. And the Ministry of Justice called us and appealed to us not to talk about the TRRC until they finish their business. So sometimes people are guided by what they are told, So I will appeal to you once again, before I hand you guys the mic, to try to pose one question at a time, to try to take it easy, and seek clarification where there is doubt. That is why we are here. The President of the Republic is so serious about this that he even had to call me 2 nights before this program to tell the Gambian people what has happened. So he is serious, like the Minister said, to point to his point. So yes, Janko, yes. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm sure I'll have to go back to this question because you highlighted a very important issue in your introductory remarks about there are allegations. I just want official confirmation. There are allegations about people being enlisted in the security army. I just want an official confirmation based on your findings so far. Are these allegations true? What are their fates? And what are you doing to ensure, as part of your security sector, to ensure we do not have such occurrences again? People enlisted,
Yeah, I think he made it very clear that in the past they used to do screening, people are enlisted, and end of chapter. Now they have a vetting process. In fact, they are working on a vetting act, meaning continuous progressive assessment of the soldier, the police officer, the prison warden, or the customs officer, or whatever you call it. Because all these people are involved in enforcement and immigration as well. So I particularly cited the case of Mr. Sadio because it caught attention at the time, maybe 2 years ago. But that he was one guy who actually lived in the Gambia, in Marakisa, a village, and then he lived there for so long. He used his familiarity with Marakisa and enlisted in the National Army. And when he enlisted, all the credentials he presented were Gambian credentials. You know how it is sometimes here. You can easily go and people are so hospitable. They take you, you get a birth certificate, and one thing leads to another. After the Barrow presidency, came to power, they decided to do a thorough vetting investigative process. And it was in that process that Sadio and the several I talked about were actually identified and removed. So that's what it is. To the best of my knowledge, it was in the army. Could it have been in the police force? Maybe. I don't know. Any other? Yes. Yes, sir.
I am Muhammad from PTV. My question would be on prison condition. It is the same infrastructure we had in the past. We still have, in the Gambia currently. So we're talking about security sector reform. Has there been transformation when it comes to prison infrastructure in order to commensurate with the democratic, dispensable way, to respect human rights, dignity, etc. When it comes to defense. So the other question, we talk about comprehensive assessment with partners. How was this assessment conducted? And with partners, how was this assessment conducted? Thank you.
Okay. I think you asked 2 questions, and one is probably directed to me, and that's the prison condition Yes. The prisons, I wish you go and visit the prisons. You see great changes in the prisons. There are structural changes. There are also administrative changes in the prisons. One thing, there are great changes that occurred during this period. One, the prison officers have now moved from the prison, not usual prison service, now to rehabilitation. Even though the department is not yet changed to rehabilitation center, but the conduct of officers is on the other way is rehabilitative. There are a lot of skill centers that prisoners are undergoing now, skill training inside the prison, both Mile 2 and Joshua. And then we've also prepared a manual for them to adopt the international standard. One of them is to focus their procedures on Mandela rules. The other one is to Mandela rules on prisoners generally, and then the Beijing rules for juvenile prisoners, and also Bangkok rules for female prisoners. Their care and custody are all now formulated, and then the officers are now undergoing training in various areas to make sure that we meet this international standard. I hope that answers your question in respect of prisons. Physical structure, probably what we are seeing outside is not what is inside. Inside is a different institution now. Thank you.
Okay, the second one, the assessment.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. When I said, the issue of the assessment and the members, that comprise and took active participation in the exercise, we are referring to the security sector reform assessment, which was culminated with a report. And if you have the opportunity, unfortunately I don't have it here, you will see the list. We have got from the civil society organization, a member from the African Center for Human Rights. We have also got a member from the National Youth Council. Luckily, he is now one Mr. Tarawale. He is an employee of the, CRC, the Review Commission, Constitutional Review Commission. We have also got, 1 or 2 from GBOS, Statistics, and then one from the NGOs. So basically, we ensured that all the groups, the only group we miss is the disabled. So from there, in fact, all our activities, from consultations, validations, we ensure that it is very inclusive. We are, inviting everybody, and then I think we are about to look into the adoption of the strategic documents. I think when it is confirmed, as usual, you will also be invited. Some of the main names, in particular, Madi Jobate, you talk to him. Madi has been presenting papers. Madi has been attending our consultations and validation exercises. So it's an open exercise. The only thing is we were not very close. We didn't have a communication strategist to help us in ensuring that the public are aware of what was happening. So, but like the Honorable Minister has just mentioned, this is one of, let's say, just the beginning. Yeah. We will really endeavor to close ranks with all of you, especially the media, to ensure that you help us to take the whole process to the people. So whatever happens here, nobody should take it at heart. the security sector reform is looking forward to ensure that there is close partnership and friendship between the office, the process, because the office is also, ONS, but the process starts with the president, including everybody sitting here, and then the people will ensure that we have partnership, and we will all continue to, bring our individual efforts to ensure that we have a successful conclusion of the process. Thank you.
Omar.
Thank you very much. I'm Omar of the Standard newspaper. I am, of course, among the members of being involved in the process of the SSR. I attended a lot of programs and workshops that were organized by SSR. But after listening to your overall assessment of the process so far, I wonder whether what progress has been made since the last time we met, and you talked about the progress of the day. So I just want to know whether you have a specific, concrete, specific timeline tell us that this is what has achieved so far. I'm not convinced from what I had so far, but it's not very different from what I used to hear. The other thing is the issue of the right size. Initially, when the SSR was formed, you were talking about downsizing. Later, that changed. You have not talked about that today. I just want to know whether it is still your goal, of course, to right size the security sector, because we know as things stand, our public, of course, we like for example, we have almost half of public and civil servants at security offices, about 42%, if I am right. The final question is to the Honorable Minister of Information. The Minister of Defense, of course, answered one of my questions. That is, the concerns that have been raised about government commitment. He has made it emphatically clear that your government is committed to ensure that these reforms are done. But my question to you is, are you not beginning to, or let's say, are you not concerned that these reforms are taking too much time to be completed? Because this was among the top priorities of your government when you went to office in 2017. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The Minister of Interior has volunteered to answer the question about the security.
Thank you very much for the question. Sometimes when I thought I doubt whether you are making a statement or an opinion or a statement or a question. But finally, you asked about certain things that are not mentioned here. The right of it is downsizing and right-sizing. All that I want to say here is that the security sector reform is in progress. And for the security that has been completely dismantled, for that long, we don't expect that to be completed in fact, it's going to be a continuous process. As what we are looking for is the documents has to come, and we align ourselves to those documents. But it requires the participation of every one of us, including even the journalists, to help in making sure that the security sector is properly reformed. One of the things that you said, you don't, there's nothing like reform. You have not seen any reform. That one that creates some doubts in my mind, because all that we have said here, if you said there's no reform, Baji has taken at least 30 minutes of our time here explaining what are the advancements, what happened during this period. So for somebody to say you have not seen anything, and we also said it here that some of these security sectors decisions that are going to be in the document are overtaken by events. SIS now is not investigating criminal matters anymore. So that means
there is a security sector reform in the NIA. The armies are not taking complaints from the members of the public. That's also a security sector reform in that line. The police also, their attitude towards certain individuals has also changed. You have seen an instance when a police officer tortured somebody and is taken before. That was not happening before. There was no commission created to investigate into those matters. Now that the commission has conducted investigation and they come out with their conclusion, I think there's a little bit of reform. For somebody to stand to say there is no reform, I definitely say no to that. When is the reform going to end? That probably should be the question that we should ask here. It will take a long time for a complete reform. Nobody can say, even Mr. Baji cannot say we have to complete all the reforms within a relatively short period. No. In Sierra Leone, it takes 10 years for a complete reform. Although our situation is quite different from that of Sierra Leone. We are not in a war. But there was some malpractices and a stalemate that leads to all what happened today. So it's a gradual process and we'll be there surely. I think all necessary steps have been taken towards attaining security sector reform. And I want you to at least congratulate them for that, not saying we have not seen any progress in it. That to me is definitely.
Maybe you missed the question.
Yeah, no, I don't miss the question. I think you missed your
I
question.
said last time we met, I didn't say there's no reform. I said I didn't see much difference in what he said. From the last time we met.
There's already a vetting bill that they prepared, and I think that was after your meeting them. A vetting bill has been prepared, and this was deliberated on by myself and the other members of the cabinet yesterday night, around 9 o'clock at night. So these are all things that are coming up, and I think we'll be there one day. How soon, we don't know, but progress has been made. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Omar from the Standard. I think it's good. I was struggling to look at it because somebody covered the view. By now, I'm looking at it. If you would just allow me for a to read something. That's why at the beginning I didn't want to read speeches here. Because we will continue to engage directly. But now allow me 1 minute to say, maybe it will answer some of your questions. The reform is about finding better ways of doing things and how to prioritize our needs. So reform is a good thing because it helps you do your security sector reform was conceived in the Gambia after the 2016 presidential election to transform the sector and subject it to democratic civilian control founded on human rights and respect for rule of law. In September 2017, the government officially launched the SSR process, appointed a national security advisor, and established an SSR steering committee to lead the process. The Minister of Justice, Honorable Minister of Justice, continues to lead that from his predecessor. This led to the security sector reform assessment. It's good to give you a background. The outcome of the assessment revealed overarching issues such as lack of appropriate institutional policies and legal frameworks and serious capacity deficiencies. This process culminating in the drafting of the first ever national security policy of this country, which of course everybody knew was launched years ago. The drafts of the National Security Strategy and the Security Sector Reform Strategy were presented to the National Security Council a few days ago for adoption, and it is at the final stages of publication, which of course all of us will have copies, and subsequent launching. The strategies, if launched, will help the security forces achieve and implement the national security policy and recommendations of the Security Sector Reform Assessment. Ladies and gentlemen, this process is not going to be 1, 2, or 3 years. I think it's important to be honest to tell you as Gambians. We will going to retire eventually and go, and you people will continue this job because the process is a process going on. It cannot happen in 2 or 3 years. But good news is, at least the Gambia is now adhering to international best practice. Now people are free, the basic rule of law, human dignity. If something happens, you can easily walk to go to the courts. Nobody is beating anybody. We're trying to repent and and reconcile our problems, learn from our mistakes, come together and move forward. Ladies and gentlemen, this is about the reform. It's not thinking that's going to happen 1-2 years like them that did it. So I think I've heard him clearly that he talked about downsizing. Before any decision can be made on downsizing, it will be ideal that the following issues are taken into account. How significant is the rate of attrition? How many deaths, discharges, dismissals, desertions, and retirements have been recorded? Since 2017, GAF's strength has reduced despondently, drastically. A lot of people are talking about thousands. Over 1,000 have left. Some because of death, some because they have better opportunities, but some because of they were security risks that the leadership figured that these people we should honorably release. So there are, the reforms are tangibles and intangibles. There are things that you cannot see open. Now we have come to a curve. You are beginning to see things. That's why we call this press conference. But before, I will say something. There are other negative issues associated with downsizing. Remember, these people are also Gambians. You cannot just, our brothers and sisters, just kick them out in the streets. How are we going to process it? We should organize a soft landing for them. Some of them voluntarily will retire. Some of them will even say one day that if they have some packages that, you know what, I've done my best for the Gambia in the armed forces, I think it's time for me to go. So please, I want you to come on board so that you understand the concept of what we're doing. It cannot happen in a year or two. In conclusion, right sizing. This term is often misconstrued. It means having the right and appropriate size of any armed force. After the assessment is considered that units and formation lack the correct disposition of troops, and in that context, right sizing means increasing the numbers to meet the correct troop in case we are deficient. People are thinking that there are too many. We may even go to some units where you need some more people. But there were 3 years of embargo. This government has not recruited for years. But during that years, a lot of people have left the army. Over 1,000 and some people. Eventually the records will come. But out of national security, we cannot sit here and tell you all the details of the Gambia Armed Forces. No armed forces will do that. But this is your armed forces. We need to give you. Again, more significantly, we have what we call the tangible and non-tangible benefit of SSR. Please take note. In the tangible is where you have downsizing, right-sizing, improving the living conditions of the forces, whilst the non-tangible is where we have publication of policy documents, conduct of study tours, workshops, seminars, developing a communication strategy, capacity building, etc. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the beginning of a road that this country is moving from where we were to now get the right structures. We have 4 cadets at the West Point, some of the highest militaries in the US. We have people training in the US. We have people in Nigeria. We have people in Ghana. We have our troops in Darfur. I think the CDS said it the other time. The last time they arrived, $1 million in everybody's bank account. Are those part of reforms? A lot of things are happening. You are also getting them better accommodation. Their transportation allowances have improved. Well, remember, your country, our country, is a poor country. If you expect security, it's too expensive. If you expect things to happen overnight, it's not going to happen. So it's good for us, you to ask the questions, but we should give you the answers. The next time, I will have to read a whole speech, because I don't think it's fair today for me alone to be reading all these speeches while you people are here. But please, reforms are going on, promotions are going on, restructurings are going on. The defense policy is almost here. Do you know what defense policies are? That's where I'm going to conclude. Defense policy of your country is now beginning at the drafting stage. The first component of that policy is national security. Sorry, I will take that back. National interest and core value. So the reform of our armed forces is not only holding guns running around. There is more complicated. The policy, defense policy of the Gambia, we used to have defense agreement with other countries. We used to have with Senegal. That's why they came here in 1981. And but remember, we have a defense policy. Never in this country. Maybe you people don't know that. So as a young guy, do your research and do your homework. We had defense agreements with some countries, but a defense policy for Gambia we are beginning to have right now. You know what the defense policy talks about? National interest, core values, strategic assessment of the environment, What do we need to protect this Gambia? Who is Gambia in the international community? ECOWAS, AU, UN, because we are not on our own. So maybe some people may not like all what I'm saying, but any genuine Gambian should be able to appreciate that. You know, don't be too the politics of confrontation, and please leave that down. Ask your questions. When we answer, if you are not satisfied, do your research. Or come to our office, call our number and say, hey, Minister, you said the defense policy is that. Can I come and see? I said, come. My team is there. Interior is ready. Communication is ready. The President has given directives for all cabinet members. We need to come now and so far achieve Gambians what we want. Do we need to do more? All Gambians need to do more. But at least we have moved from a place where we needed respect for rule of law, democracy, and human rights. Do we have improvement in that or not? Any Gambian will have to answer that. If we say no, let's try to improve. But I'm asking you a question. Is there improvement on the general atmosphere of this country? And we want to keep the peace of this country. Everybody is trying to help us, Gambia, not to get into trouble. I know there are groups of people who always want this country to be in flames. We are appealing to them. Let us come together. Let us concentrate to build this country for you people. Some of us in a few years will go. I can tell you. There's no doubt about that. It's a continuous thing. And then the other people will take over. So this is my contribution. And if any question comes my way, I'll be happy to answer it. I wish I'll be here till 5 o'clock to answer to this young journalist who may not know. But if you have anything, please ask me before I leave. If not, I will leave my cards. They are right here. My numbers are here. You can get my phone numbers in the Ministry of Defense, and afterwards journalists can get it. And let's continue to engage. And let us continue to dialogue and try to inform the population. That's why we bring you here. And not for you to beat your chest and say, I am this, and go and write. No, we want you to inform the population about where we are. I wish we can do this in local languages as well, because some of our aunts and uncles cannot speak English up country. And we want you all to help me to work together, help all of us, help yourselves, so that we can transform this information, so that the Gambians will know where we came from as an armed forces, as a justice department. We want to now come together and learn from our mistakes. What have we done wrong for the TRC to happen, CRC, and all these commissions? What can we do to avoid that, so that the younger generation will not fall into the same trap of personality conflict, insults, politics of fighting? Gambians should move from there. That's what the defense policy is going to bring. National interest and core value. It's not about guns or fighting, but to dialogue. What can we do to prepare this country to be one of the best countries in the world? Not to stay and fight each other as Gambians. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister of Defense and Honorable Minister of Interior, for those attempts. Let me just, minutes to answer, the three questions, or the question posed by our brother. I will take it in three groups. Yes. One, what I've realized is there is an interest in the timeline or the time frame. And take it from me, and you can research on it. The international best practice of security sector reform has concluded that it takes 5 years as a short-term time frame to deal with security sector reform, and 10 years for medium term. Research it everywhere. We have just completed 3 years. But we all understand, like Honorable Minister of Interior has alluded to, we have not come out of conflict. But I will repeat again. We had an impasse, we had a difficult transition, and we had authoritarian rule. But security sector reform is security sector reform, and we are also trying to adhere and align ourselves to best standard, of international best practice and standard. Then let's look at the focus. I think the reason why you have not seen much is, I think we've told you that after the assessment, we were trying to focus on the program lines or thematic areas. And the first one is trying to address issues relating to overarching frameworks. These are the policy documents, the acts, the regulations, reviewing of all, regulations, etc. To help us and to guide and ensure that the security sector, is able to address the critical issues that were perpetuated. Because of lack of those frameworks, that some of the issues were, happened. So basically, that's why we have a deficit, we have a malfunction. We said, this is the area where we will work on the mindset. This is the area where we will work on the behaviors. This is the area where we will work on the attitude of members. So basically, that one is not very tangible that you will put your hand on and feel it. Then the last one, the right sizing. My apology for not mentioning it, but we have gone very far. And let me report that His Excellency the President, almost a month ago or two, did take his own time to address the issue. And in doing it, he constituted a task force which is chaired by Honorable Secretary General, Mr. Noha Toure. I am a member of it, of that particular thing. And then we are working, as of now, I think the Honorable Ministers will attest to it. It was an issue we even discussed at our last National Security Council meeting. So we have gone very far. We are now at level of questionnaires, applications, those who may want to go voluntarily, and then what will be the soft landing, etc. But do understand that this is not an isolated case. In every security sector reform, there is this component of public expenditure review, which is the baby of the World Bank and the IMF. And we are still working with them. It is not only that the government is concerned, but our partners are also equally concerned. We have gone very far, and then it is at the level of a task force. So it is not even only my office, but a task force being chaired by the Secretary General. I think that will show you how serious, the President is. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think on the hands, there are hands around. Gender parity.
Oh.
Gender parity.
Our mother.
I think he's got one for information.
I think your question was answered by, because you said it took so long, whether he didn't think, it was long.
What?
The man told you emphatically how the president was serious in his government.
He has just instituted a task force chaired by Honorable Noha Toure. Anything I tell you, if you are not, in agreement, you have, the opportunity to go and find out. And I said also, in the best practice, international best practice, go and research it. When you are doing security sector reform, it is 5 years considered as short term and 10 years for medium term. So basically, that answers the time frame. And we are around what? 3 years going into 4 years, meaning the time frame or time of 5 years has not even elapsed. So we are probably, we've not gone into, this thing, conflict, but we need to make sure that it is, this issue which is, very sensitive, very complex, we need to ensure that we do it right, so that at the end of the day, meaningfully we will all gain as Gambians. We have seen the examples. You know what is happening in Cote d'Ivoire, Ivory Coast. They've gone through the security sector reform. There is third-term issue there. Soldiers are in the street. We know what happened in Guinea-Conakry. Go and research it. Guinea-Conakry went through security sector reform. sponsored by partners like France. What is happening? The president is going for third term. The soldiers once in a while are in the streets. I need not mention Mali. So that should be a lesson to learn for us. If you look around, we are concerned. The SIS is here, the prisons is here, the police, PRO is just sitting next to you. We are all involved. At the level of the presidency, that is OP, where I'm sitting, and at the respective and individual, security institutions, they have done a lot. We don't have time to go chronologically or mention everything from head to tail. But, a lot has been achieved. But nonetheless, you are concerned, you are part of it. What I want to say is, if you have time, you can, you are free to go and consult and, interact with our office and any institutions to help you to ensure that at least you are able to, know what we have achieved so far. Because essentially, again, this, press conference, one of the objectives is for us to interact so that we get your feedback. We are also able to sell to you what we have done so far. So we can continue the discussions, my brother. And thank you very much for your concern. Huh?
Do you still have any sort of information to help?
The question was,
hold on. Yes?
The question was fabulous, I know. But this is, body cannot speak on behalf of the government. We have to be clear about it. So the government, I don't think Mike is here representing.
Index.
Lady wants to say.
The defense minister has already answered this particular question. Whether government is not concerned about the length or the time it is taking for this to take place. And that this answer was also followed by the explanation given by the expert himself, who is in charge of the national security reform process, that this thing, you cannot put just a short timeline to it. Especially the reform of not only AIDS security agency, but all the services in this country, looking at their operations, looking at what needs to be done to ensure that they have, not only the right men in the right places, but also, necessary training and capacity building support that has to be given to them. And this has to be guided by policies. For years in this country, we have been doing things haphazardly. Now, the ministries and the agencies that are responsible for the security sector reform have seen the need to come up with policy documents and frameworks to guide them, so that even when they are not here, this process will continue. So I don't think there is enough time for anything like this. You will continue to do it. The policies will continue to guide you, and even those policies maybe will even change with time. And also that you are talking about the time, and I guess your time here is about the money maybe, because you said we are spending money on it. When good money is going into good cause, that in itself yield good results, and that's what we want for this country. And I want to also appeal, for one thing, for us to all understand. Our security services and forces are our own, and they are here for all of us. They are doing great work for us. Today we all go home and sleep well, knowing that some people are doing certain things for us to stay safe and well in our homes. Let us continue to support them
Let us not antagonize. Let us not see them differently. That will help all of us to see that, even if we don't agree on anything, but we can all be assured that our patriotism, our love for our country, our support for our country will keep us together, knowing that we have people that are determined to see that peace and security prevails in this country. Thank you.
Now I have
my answer to your question will be very, very short. Matters under investigation should remain under investigation until such time that. So it is very wrong of officers, if they should do that, to divulge information relative to information that they are conducting, or that they can gather information while in the course of investigation, but they cannot divulge information while the investigation is still on. But it's also important that the sooner the investigation is completed, the outcome is communicated. That is when we expect journalists to come in and we transmit the information to them, readily available. Then there will not be any question over anybody. So that's a very good issue, and I think it is to be. But then we need also assistance from the journalists. What we are seeing now is not healthy for your profession and also for the nation. People sit at their homes and write anything because of democracy. Yes, you have the right to express your opinion, but at least take reasonable steps to investigate what happened. There are some news media that I'm not even tuning now, because what they are saying, I'll be part of something and then they're saying a wrong thing about that thing. Imagine if I'm in this meeting here and something is said here, it's obvious to me that I know about what is said here. For somebody to say that maybe a few hours time, I learned something different. Also should help the government in making sure that there is stability and peace in this country. You can get information the way you want it. We are all very free if you need anything from us. The French minister made mention of it here, that the office is open, my office is open. You can get any information that you want, but do not just come up with your opinion without finding out. I've seen that many times. And I think when we work together, we'll be able to do something good, great for this nation, and will make peace. And so, because it is only in the peaceful atmosphere that you can operate very well. I witnessed the impasse here, and journalists are not out. So let us all pray for peace and stability in this country. We'll give you whatever you want if you want information. But the reliability of your information is very key. And not only, I'm not only saying, it's not even only journalists. People who go work and then put up their opinion, and you publish their opinion without consulting the other party. I've seen somebody made mention of, yes, I drunk, I've never drank in my life. For somebody to say, I used to fall down in the street, that person didn't know me. Yes. That I smoke cannabis, I've never in my life. So what sort of journalists are we talking? What sort of information are we? And people are publishing that. You allow that to happen. Somebody will stand up a day and say something about you that you won't even like. And it's just all these things because of democracy. Let us also, we have a culture. I'm not blaming journalists, but I'm blaming people who come to journalists and also journalists taking their words from them without cross-checking. I think we have to, it's a responsibility of every one of us, to make sure that this country is peaceful. In a peaceful atmosphere, publication can be, you can go to the radio stations and do a lot of things and earn your living, and everybody earns his living. But in the absence of peace, we are all going to face difficulty. And let us all pray that this country remains very peaceful. I've seen questions coming in. Some of the questions are very, it's just like I want to ask questions. But some of these things are already stated highly clear in the presentation. It is only something that you don't find in the presentation that you ask us, then we clear it out. We've said many times here that this is a process that is gradual and will be there one day. Nobody can reform within a year or two. The frameworks are all done. Now is the implementation. And implementation has to be planned. We have to prepare for the retirement package for those that are going to be downsized, discharged. And we also have to look at our structures. We make sure that we have pyramid structure at all the time. So if you take, like for example, you take 10 inspectors from the police, then the pyramid structure is damaged. How are we going to make sure that we have that chain pyramid structure in all offices? So these are some of the things that are in the planning, and we will there one day. But for us for you to say nothing has happened, that to me is a very big disappointment. Because we all know there are changes. If you go out in the street, you know something has happened. So thank you very much.
Yeah, two more ladies, Fabu and Fabu. Is it? What is it? Yes, yes.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Fabu Maragino from the Fabu Network. What I have, I'm not sure if it is a question, but it's something that I really like to know about you, since we are one of the people that we go out and interview people, talk to them. I've seen someone, or I've made an observation about the type of information that we journalists bring out to the public, and also Gambians giving out information, especially in social media. they said those of the boys that sit in these ghettos, they said they have lots of skills. So I don't know if there's any other way the government can look into the matter of this risk. That's what I have. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Hello. Well, thank you so much. I guess you know, I mean, I came to government from being a journalist. For 10 years, I edited and owned a newspaper in America, the Gambia Echo. This is what I struggle against every day, that even if you don't like the president, don't insult his mother. An innocent woman has no business to do with politics. Unfortunately, that is just the nature of the beast, that is politics. While politicians may have gaffes, once in a while you see you make utterances that are maybe reprehensible. We also see people who sit down at home and deliberately, just to caricature or say something bad, just invent a good tale about me or anybody and just peddle it on social media. I was in Ethiopia 2 years ago and I made a very short speech that we have now a situation in this world where you have evolving what I would call new realms of journalism. Nobody ever knew 25 years ago in the Gambia that we are going to have WhatsApp online and all that. Today is all over. And today you can have a village idiot, sit anywhere across the world, and just by the button of his computer or mobile phone, his message resonates across the world. I just, before coming here, somebody forwarded me a text message by some person who sent a message out there that he wants people to come today and go on social media and create, and just be sabotaging whatever you are doing. So I know some of you are live. Maybe even the little exchanges I have with him are being insulting all over. Yes, so that's the new realm of journalism. For me, I have developed a very thick skin. You can go to any radio station every day and insult my mother, insult my father, insult me, my family. I don't really care, because I know one thing. Nobody is more Gambian than I am. I love this country. I left here and went on exile for some 20-something years. And when I graduated from university, the little money I had, I used and bought computers and started an online program to battle dictatorship. So today you see people beating their chests and pounding their chests. Ma defli, ma re gainde bin, telling us it's good. Yeah. So it's okay. There will be a day of reckoning, and then whatever you have contributed is up to you. So what is important is let's love our country. That's what I always say. I'm always reminded that I put my right hand on the Quran and my left on the Constitution, that I will not tell lies. I will abide by the laws of the Gambia, and I will do my best for the very Gambian people. I was sworn to defend, and that is my responsibility. Yes, and it's good that you have a young journalist like Fatu or Infatu who has decided not to publish mere allegations without substance. Journalism also has to go with ethics. Yeah. No matter how you hate this man or how you dislike him, but just for the heck of it, somebody just writes something and say the man is a fallen drunk, he falls here and there, and that is news item, an interior minister. For heaven's sake, I think we're better than that. And I think we're better than that. You can do better than that. Yes. No. One more, Lady Fab. You have 3 questions. Yes, Fab. Yes. And that's the last question. You have a question? Okay.
From the Gambia Television Service. And my question will be directed to the National and Security Advisor to the President or the Minister of Information. We do know the Gambia is at a crossroad in its political growth. And we had the Constitution of the Gambia, the new draft, being rejected, of course, by the National Assembly, and that was a month ago. And when the new government came in, was to have the whole process, a reform process actually of the whole sector, or the whole country rather, the whole different processes. And we do know that the Constitution is actually one of those key priorities that the government of the Barrow administration was looking forward to having changed. Now that we have that important document being projected by the National Assembly, my question is, how will it affect the outcome of the transitional, of the security sector reform, and by extension, the transitional reform process of the Gambia? And my second question is, the National Security Advisor did mention that it takes a whole lot of 5 years to actually have the security sector reform completed. Now we are 3 years into the process. How would you convince Gambians to actually believe in the process and to trust the process that is, of course, the security sector reform? And my last question is, we do know some of the laws or some of the strategy documents that you have, they're drafted in English. And when we talk about security, it should cut across all sectors. You did mention of having it translated into the local languages to make sure that it gets the target group, but of course those in rural Gambia and the grassroots level. How do you intend to have these messages translated? Thank you.
Ibrahim, you're going to go first?
Yeah, I think the first question is about the film draft and whether that has whether there's any way we can, I don't know, create some confidence.
Well, I can tell you that just last night, and the cabinet has mandated the Attorney General and Minister of Justice to constitute a working group to start the engagement process to have a consensus on the draft constitution. That shows the commitment of the Gambia and the Gambia government to this very important process. Now, regardless of whatever is happening, the security sector reform process is ongoing. It will continue to go. It will continue to evolve. And as you have heard from both the Minister of Defense and the Minister of Interior, but also the head of the security sector reform process, this is something that government is passionate about. Government is committed to it. It's our pet, baby, and we will continue to give it the necessary attention it deserves, including committing resources to it. That is why, a draft bill is coming that will clearly define the role of the National Security Office within the overall government bureaucracy. And for the first time also, as you have heard from the Defense Minister, we are going to have a national defense policy. These are all important reform processes that will define the character of our national security reform process. We have also seen, for the first time in the history of this country, a manual being developed, printed and conceptualized by the Gambia Police Force to help new recruits understand, because most of these people for 20 years were part of a system that is completely different from what we have now. So today a manual is developed that is guiding them, that is supporting them. You have heard in the prisons where prisoners are being trained in different skills so that when they go out, they can go with something and start a life. So these are things that are unprecedented and they will continue. So the reform is not only talking about tangible things that you can see and touch, but these are things also that will have very serious impact on the lives of not only the target beneficiaries, but also the institutions. So really, I think, the commitment of the government is still very high, and the political will is there. There is a strong political will from the president to his, key ministers that are part of this process, the entire cabinet, the National Security Office, but also key influencers in the society. You have the chiefs, the local, setup, even within the villages. Maybe you have not been seeing those things, but I have seen on GRTS
when they were doing their countrywide consultations, how some of these things were clearly defined to some of us, because we are all, people like us are laymen in this. But it was during those periods that we have now come, we came to understand that after all, the security sector reform is so huge, is so big, that it involves everybody. Because when you do it in your office and you deal with the forces alone, you don't deal with the civilians or the influencers in society, certain things will be lacking. So I think the constitutional review process, that notwithstanding, the key activities that are going on, peg on very strong milestones, will still continue. And we hope and wish that the media will continue to collaborate with the National Security Office. I want to appeal to our colleagues to, the National Security Office has, requested our ministry to provide them with a communication, officer. We will work with them on this. And they are also preparing their own communication strategy. This is extremely important. It is meant to interface with you people so that you can be like an engine or a vehicle, to carry these messages to the people in whatever language possible for people to understand what is going on. That is extremely very important, and we will continue to work with you on those reforms that are going on. I also want to thank the head of the national security, because what I have heard here, I think these are really big achievements, and that those notwithstanding, they are still aiming for more. Let us collaborate with them. Let us be patient. If you want any information, the spokesman is here. I am here. The minister is the Minister of Defense and also the Minister of Interior. Their doors are open. They will continue to engage you, and we will continue to also facilitate access for you. If you have more information that you want to give out but you don't have answers for, just please liaise with us. We will provide. And also, for the first time, we have seen the various forces. They all have very active communication units. This is unprecedented. You want anything clarified from the armed forces, Major Sanya is here. He easily provides. The police force also the same thing. Even the SIS that is not visible now for the first time in 22 years, you want information from them, they easily provide. Because we are in a democracy. The immigration, the fire service, they all have, and the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, you always see them in the media, because we want to make sure that this interface continues. Even if the, duty bearers, at the level of the ministers are not available, the technical people who are handling some of these operations are easily, readily available for you people to access them. So let us continue to collaborate. Let us continue to do things professionally and ethically, and hopefully we will all get there and people will be well informed. Thank you.
Sir, yes, that's it.
Do you have a question for me or not?
No, I have one person. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, it wasn't for me.
Let me just this time frame.
Thank you for getting me off the book.
And the translation. Okay, thank you very much. Let me just again reiterate on the issue of timeline. You see, I think we have to understand at this level that yes, the security sector reform is a process, but it is time bound, obviously, and there is a benchmark. And this benchmark, which is accepted internationally, that's what I am trying to put across. But nonetheless, and notwithstanding, that doesn't mean that we are dragging our foot and we are, ensure we are moving towards or looking at 5 years as our target. No. We are doing everything possible, but as a process, there are challenges, there are constraints. So we just want you to bear with us on that aspect. Yes, and then the second question that's very important is a concern that I will take up, with the steering committee. Other than the National Security Council, we have, a level in our coordination strata. That's the Security Sector Reform Steering Committee. They also assist us, they give approvals to some of the suggestions. So it is important, like, the Honorable Minister have stated, when you look at the Gambia, you look at the literacy, level, the percentage, obviously, it comes to mind that anything that we are doing, we should consider, translating the English version to, vernacular, so that, our brothers, the Syrians, the Fullers, and then my Koto is there, and other, local languages, so that we can all be part of it, or else we will be discriminating a huge and a chunk of the Gambian population. So thank you for your concern.
Yeah, Mr. Sang.
Good afternoon to you all, honorable ministers. I don't have a question, I just want to contribute.
Yeah, obviously. SIS, contribution.
One of the contentious issues that affects us, great our able journalists, is the fact that, like somebody mentioned, the importance of having a case investigated before publication. In the field, what we call freelance journalists. A freelance journalist who just took it upon himself, maybe after 2 or 3 months training under your boss, you want to be fully functional in the field, that problems. Because one, you need capacity. What you need is to be professionally trained, to be able to be fully functional in the field. You are there to collect information. Once this information is collected, like in the context of the National Intelligence Agency, when we collect, we have to subject this information to what we call analysis. And I think this is what should equally happen in your domain. You must not allow people that are ill-prepared, that only want to take up the job, to go to the field and to be independent in the execution of their duties. They must be under constant supervision if you really want them to produce results. The mere fact that you leave them to operate like that, without being supervised, the consequences is that the tendency there is they may come with rumors. And in the context of security, a rumor can cause an incident. An incident, if an incident is not professionally managed, it can degenerate to a crisis situation in the country. And this is what we are running away from. We have a very peaceful country. The leadership, in my considered opinion, I'm a retiree. I just retired 6 months ago. I'm giving a 1-year contract. All my life, the security, 10 years police training school as an instructor, 28 years in the intelligence training academy as a lecturer. I'm a career educationist. So I know what I'm telling you. When you look at the security landscape of this country and do your assessment, look at the political environment, I think journalists should help us. Because you people, you are so critical, you don't know. But you are so important that what you are doing, you are contributing a very pivotal role when you come to governance. You people are the intermediary between the government and the civil society. So it is important for you to have the right men on the ground to collect what they are supposed to collect. Analyze issues, analyze critical issues before they are published. Because once a document from a journalist is published, it attracts international attention. Everybody comes to know about it. The whole world is learned. You people are educators. You educate and enlighten the general public. So the substance has to be there. You know, the substance has to be there. You should look at that piece or pieces of information you are disseminating for the consumption of the general public. It's very, very important. I don't blame you for anything, but I only want to observe that maybe you need to go yourself, do the work to collect what you're supposed to collect. Otherwise, you create chaos in the country. Journalists are so important in this country like any other country. You people are so critical. We cannot even go, we are indispensable. No society
can go without them.
I am afraid that this program now is coming down to the authority and journalists. And then some of you people don't understand who is a journalist. We are now living in a generation of information where people get from social media. But this press conference is not meant for that. We understand that the Gambian security still have a problem with journalism. And it is becoming evident in this.
Can you ask a question?
Who is this guy? It's not to be fair to journalists. Some of the journalists who people are attacking, people go to social media, they write whatever they want to write. You are calling them journalists.
I want to appeal, please.
It is not fair.
Appeal. I'm appealing to all of you, my brothers and sisters.
I think Mr. Silas will let some of these government officials to know who is a journalist and who is not a journalist.
Alaji, is this Alaji US Coast?
Yes.
Alaji, of all people, at least.
You are entitled to your
No,
opinion.
it's okay. Alaji. Alaji.
Don't take it personal. No, I will take it personal because the people are taking it personal.
But then take it from me, I'm appealing, please. But, I'm not man in the airport. Now, conclusive and call. I need no more of my apology, personally. Colleague, personal apology. My brother, a personal apology from me. Personally.
No, there is nothing to apologize.
No, it's okay.
No, hold on. Hold on.
No, I'm
no, please. I must take responsibility. I'm the chair of this program. You see, when I started this program, I crave your indulgence to at least exercise some degree of propriety and decorum. You know, we are, at least I know I'm a journalist. I know that. Nobody should even tell me that. I know that. But just to stand and start talking Alaji, and you have a chairperson and you know me very well, without even taking permission from me, and to just interject, I think you need to apologize.
I'm sorry.
You need to apologize. And I take it up specifically with Peter Gomez. I think, no. This, no,
at the Lord, please, it's over.
Please, you know.
He has apologized. He has. It's okay.
I think you are somehow not fair to us.
Alaji, it's over. It's over, please. No, it's abula.
No, hold on. There is nothing that stops him.
Alaji.
No. You see. Anyway, this press conference is over. I thank you all for taking your time, coming here and asking questions. We will have another press conference. It's going to be more organized. Trust me.
Sir, thank you very much. In Africa.
Huh? Thank you, sir. Yeah, thank you.